What if ancient civilizations had never fallen? What if Rome still ruled Europe, or the Maya civilization continued to thrive across the Americas? In this episode of Armchair Archaeology, we'll venture into a world where the rise and fall of history's greatest empires took a different course. Imagine a modern world shaped by Rome's unbroken engineering mastery, Carthage's mercantile prowess, or the Mayas' eco-friendly urban planning. From Constantinople as a cultural powerhouse to Songhai as a global trade hub, we'll explore how the survival of these empires would have reshaped history, and stick around until the end to discover how one ancient Roman invention might have revolutionized modern infrastructure. Imagine if the Roman Empire had never collapsed in 476 AD. Instead of breaking into warring kingdoms, Europe remains unified under Roman law and governance. Rome's administrative genius and engineering mastery would continue shaping modern Europe. Picture highways stretching from Lisbon to Constantinople, connecting the continent like today's interstate systems, but built upon centuries-old Roman roads. Cities today could feature more advanced aqueducts, ensuring clean water supplies for growing populations, all stemming from Roman engineering. The influence of Rome wouldn't stop at infrastructure. The Latin language, rather than splintering into various Romance languages, might have evolved into a unified global language. Latin could serve as today's English, a universal medium for business, science, and diplomacy. Roman culture, too, would persist. Public spaces like forums and bathhouses would remain central to social life, places where citizens engage in politics, commerce, and leisure. These spaces would serve as the social hubs of cities, much like public squares and cafes today. Religiously, Christianity would still dominate, but in a world where Roman pagan traditions are respected, not erased. Temples to Jupiter and Mars would still stand in Rome, with festivals and rituals coexisting alongside Christian practices. This blend of old and new religions might influence modern spirituality, where ancient Roman values could persist in ways we can only speculate today. Rome's ability to absorb and adapt to new religions might lead to a uniquely diverse spiritual landscape, far more tolerant of different belief systems. Rome's political landscape would evolve too. Instead of the feudal system that defined much of medieval Europe, a unified Roman state would likely develop early democratic institutions. The Senate, historically limited by emperors, could grow into a real governing body, influencing the course of governance across Europe. This might even lead to an early version of the European Union, with Rome at its heart, serving as a political and legal hub for a unified continent. The unified Roman Empire would alter the course of global colonization. Rather than fragmented nations like Spain or Portugal racing to claim dominance over the Americas, Rome might have led more organized expeditions. Roman colonies in the Americas could be governed by centralized Roman laws, ensuring the spread of Roman infrastructure and culture across the New World. Instead of fractured colonization efforts, a Roman-led expansion would integrate distant territories more efficiently into a global empire, reshaping the history of the Americas. Technologically, Roman innovation would likely have accelerated the development of modern advancements. Rome's early mastery of concrete, famously durable, would have evolved into the materials used in today's infrastructure. This brings us to the fun fact we promised. Did you know that Roman concrete, made with volcanic ash, is so advanced that many of their structures have lasted for millennia? Modern scientists are studying this ancient formula to improve current building techniques. Imagine if those innovations had continued uninterrupted. Our cities could be filled with structures built to last centuries, resisting time and weather. In this alternate history, Rome doesn't just survive, it thrives, shaping a world where political stability, technological advancements, and cultural unity define daily life. The fragmented reality of nation-states might never have come to pass, replaced by a globalized Roman Empire that evolves over centuries. Europe, Africa, and parts of Asia would be united under Roman governance, leading to a more interconnected and cohesive civilization, where the legacies of Rome's greatest achievements still influence every facet of modern society. Imagine if the Byzantine Empire had survived the Ottoman conquest of 1453. Constantinople remains a thriving metropolis, serving as the bridge between Europe and Asia. Known for blending Roman law with Greek philosophy and Christian theology, the Byzantine Empire continues to influence both the East and West, shaping global culture, trade, and religion. Constantinople's strategic location between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea ensures its role as a dominant force in global trade. With its bustling harbors, the city could rival today's megacities like Dubai or Singapore. Byzantine wealth grows as it controls key trade routes between Europe and Asia, linking the Silk Road to the Mediterranean. This commercial dominance would reinforce its cultural impact. Byzantine religious art, particularly mosaics and architecture, would influence Europe's Renaissance more deeply, blending Eastern Orthodox aesthetics with Western artistry. At the center of this cultural legacy is the Hagia Sophia, which, in this alternate timeline, remains a Christian cathedral, rather than being converted into a mosque. As the spiritual heart of Eastern Orthodoxy, the Hagia Sophia symbolizes the continuity of Byzantine Christianity, reinforcing Constantinople's religious significance across Europe and the Middle East. The survival of Byzantium could also lead to healing the Great Schism, the 1054 division between the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. With Constantinople at the helm, there may have been greater efforts to unify the two branches of Christianity. This reconciliation would reduce the religious conflicts that fractured Europe over centuries, fostering a more cohesive Christian world and strengthening Byzantine influence across the continent. The course of the Renaissance would also take a different turn. Historically, the fall of Constantinople drove Greek scholars to Italy, fueling the Renaissance. But if Byzantium remained intact, Constantinople itself would become a center of intellectual life, preserving and enhancing Greek and Roman knowledge. The city would rival Florence or Venice in terms of Renaissance influence, accelerating advancements in art, science, and literature. With Greek philosophy blending with Islamic scholarship, the intellectual exchange between East and West would flourish, leading to new discoveries and innovations. Geopolitically, the continued existence of Byzantium would alter the Middle East and North Africa. Without the rise of the Ottoman Empire, these regions would remain fragmented, and Byzantium would maintain control over Anatolia and the Balkans. This would change the course of European colonialism, as Byzantine influence extends into territories historically controlled by the Ottomans, further cementing its presence in global politics. The Byzantine navy, already formidable, would continue to dominate Mediterranean trade routes. This would secure Constantinople's place as a global superpower, enabling the empire to control commerce between Europe and Asia. Its naval dominance would protect Byzantine wealth and influence, turning Constantinople into the world's ultimate trade hub, a cosmopolitan city where cultures from around the globe converge. Politically, Byzantium's approach to governance, a blend of Roman legal traditions and Greek philosophical thought, would inspire future political systems. The emperor's rule, though central, would rely on a well-developed bureaucracy rooted in Roman law. Over time, this system might evolve to include more democratic principles, influencing how governments balance imperial authority with the voice of the people. Byzantine law, particularly corpus juris civilis, could shape global legal frameworks, harmonizing Eastern and Western concepts of governance. This intellectual and cultural cross-pollination in Constantinople, enhanced by continued interaction with the Islamic world, would lead to groundbreaking innovations. Without the disruption caused by the Ottoman conquest, Byzantine scholars could make advancements in medicine, architecture, and navigation. In this alternate world, Byzantium becomes the intellectual and economic heart of a more united and balanced global landscape. Let's shift our focus to the Americas. What if the Maya civilization had not collapsed around the 9th century, but instead thrived and expanded? Known for their deep knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and sustainable agriculture, the Maya could have become a dominant force in Central America and beyond. In this alternate history, cities like Tikal and Chichen Itza wouldn't just survive, they would evolve into bustling metropolises, combining ancient practices with modern advancements. The Maya's sophisticated calendar system, which tracked solar, lunar, and planetary cycles with remarkable accuracy, could have become the global standard for timekeeping. Imagine a world where the Maya long count calendar, with its cyclical understanding of time, defines how societies measure everything, from work schedules to religious festivals. This worldview, centered on cycles of growth and renewal, could influence how civilizations perceive the flow of time and the natural world. Architecturally, Maya cities would continue to innovate, with their pyramids and temples inspiring modern, eco-friendly designs. The Maya were pioneers of sustainable urban planning, integrating agriculture into city landscapes through terrace farming and advanced irrigation systems. These practices could have been adopted globally, making ecological balance a priority for urban development. Modern cities in this timeline might reflect Maya principles built to blend with the environment rather than disrupt it, a forward-thinking vision, especially relevant today. The Mayas' connection to nature would not only shape their architecture, but also transform agriculture worldwide. Their farming techniques, including slash-and-burn agriculture, terracing, and raised fields, were designed to maximize yields without depleting the environment. In this alternate timeline, these sustainable practices could spread, influencing agricultural methods in the Americas and beyond. The world might be spared the environmental damage we face today, with food production being more harmonious with nature. Culturally, a thriving Maya empire would leave an indelible mark on the Americas. Their writing system, one of the most advanced in the pre-Columbian world, could become widely used across Central and South America. Maya glyphs, used in everything from government documents to art, might rival Latin-based scripts in this alternate timeline. This would result in a unique visual culture, where symbols and imagery play a central role in communication, deeply influencing modern art and design. The Mayas' expertise in astronomy would impact not only timekeeping, but scientific thought globally. Their ability to predict celestial movements with great precision could influence navigation, astronomy, and the development of calendars worldwide. A Maya-dominated world might adopt entirely different scientific paradigms, where cyclical views of time and nature play a key role in shaping how societies understand natural phenomena. In this alternate history, the Maya civilization could inspire a global shift towards sustainability. Their worldview, which emphasized living in harmony with the environment, might influence how societies approach environmental issues today. Rather than exploiting resources, Maya-influenced cultures might prioritize preservation and balance, creating a global consciousness that values ecological health over short-term gain. The Maya legacy, focused on sustainability, would shape how the world interacts with the environment, offering an alternate path where humanity strives to live in harmony with nature. Now, Imagine a world where Carthage emerged victorious in the Punic Wars. If Hannibal had defeated Rome, the Mediterranean would have become a Carthaginian empire, with Phoenician culture and commerce at its heart. Unlike Rome, which focused on military conquest, Carthage was primarily a maritime and mercantile power. Its economy thrived on trade, allowing Carthage to dominate key routes between Europe, Africa, and the Near East. In this alternate history, Carthage would control the Mediterranean, transforming it into a global marketplace where distant civilizations are linked by commerce rather than warfare. Carthage's extensive trade networks would connect North Africa to Europe and Asia, transforming the Mediterranean into a bustling commercial hub. The Carthaginians excelled at shipbuilding and navigation, and in this timeline, they would likely accelerate advancements in maritime technology. Faster, more efficient ships could emerge, allowing Carthage to explore distant lands earlier than any European power. With their prowess, it's possible Carthaginian sailors would reach the Americas long before Columbus or the Vikings, establishing early trade routes between Africa, Europe, and the New World. Politically, Carthage was governed by a republic where wealth and commerce played a central role. Had Carthage defeated Rome, this mercantile republic might serve as a model for future political systems. Unlike the military-based empires that dominated much of history, a Carthaginian-led world would focus on trade and diplomacy. Merchant families, rather than generals or emperors, would hold the greatest influence, shaping global politics through their control of commerce. In this scenario, economic power would overshadow military might, with trade networks dictating the balance of power across the Mediterranean and beyond. In a Carthaginian-dominated world, Phoenician religion would replace the Roman pantheon as the dominant spiritual force in the Mediterranean. Carthage's religious practices revolved around devotion to gods like Baal-Hamon and Tanit, often involving ritual sacrifices. As Carthage expanded, these religious practices might blend with local traditions across its empire, creating a unique spiritual landscape. Instead of Roman temples and Catholic cathedrals, the Mediterranean would be dotted with temples dedicated to Phoenician deities. The cultural and religious diversity of the Carthaginian Empire would foster a more pluralistic religious environment, where local gods and Carthaginian beliefs coexist. Beyond religion and politics, Carthage's influence would reshape global linguistics. The Phoenician alphabet, the precursor to Greek and Latin scripts, could become the dominant writing system in the Western world. This would fundamentally alter the development of modern languages. Instead of Latin-based languages dominating Europe, a Phoenician-based script might influence communication across Europe, North Africa, and the Near East. In this alternate timeline, languages in Western civilization could look and sound vastly different, shaped by Phoenician vocabulary and linguistic structure. Carthage's dominance in trade would also reshape the global economy. Unlike Rome, whose expansion relied heavily on military conquest, Carthage's wealth was rooted in commerce. In this world, Carthage would focus on establishing extensive trade routes, reaching into sub-Saharan Africa and across the Atlantic. This early expansion into new markets would lead to a more interconnected world, where cultural exchange happens through commerce rather than colonization. Carthaginian influence might extend deep into Africa, fostering trade networks and cultural interactions that could shift the balance of power in the region. In this reality, Carthage would not only dominate the Mediterranean, but also lay the foundations for the modern global economy. With their emphasis on trade and diplomacy, the Carthaginians would shape a world where economic interests drive global relations, replacing the imperialist focus on territorial conquest. Cultural exchange through trade would foster a more connected world, where civilizations thrive not through warfare, but through commerce and cooperation. Finally, imagine a world where the Songhai Empire of West Africa never collapsed. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Songhai was the dominant power in West Africa, controlling key trade routes across the Sahara. If Songhai had continued to thrive, it could have become a global trade superpower, rivaling European empires of the time. Timbuktu, the empire's intellectual and commercial heart, would evolve into one of the world's most influential cities, attracting scholars, traders, and innovators from across the globe. Timbuktu's universities and libraries, known for their vast collections of manuscripts on astronomy, mathematics, and medicine, would become the intellectual epicenter of the world. In this alternate history, scholars from Europe, the Middle East, and Asia would flock to Timbuktu, leading to an African intellectual renaissance. Songhai's dedication to education could shift the global balance of intellectual power, positioning Africa as a key player in scientific and cultural advancements. In this world, Africa would no longer be perceived as a passive participant in global history, but as a central force in shaping its course. Economically, Songhai's control over gold and salt, the most valuable resources of the time, would give the empire immense global influence. With wealth flowing into the empire from across the Sahara and beyond, Songhai would fund explorations, pushing its trade networks far past the borders of Africa. In this alternate timeline, Songhai might even develop maritime trade routes along the West African coast, linking with Europe and the Americas long before European colonization efforts. Early African-led exploration and trade would drastically alter the path of global commerce, placing Africa at the forefront of global discovery and economic development. Songhai's dominance over trade routes would foster a cosmopolitan society, as merchants from around the world converge on its cities, bringing goods, technologies, and ideas. This cultural exchange could lead to innovations in agriculture, architecture, and governance. Songhai rulers, known for their commitment to education and effective governance, would likely use their wealth to build monumental cities, rivaling the grandeur of Europe's capitals. Advanced infrastructure, such as roads, public buildings, and trading ports, would symbolize the empire's growing power and prestige. In this world, Africa would emerge as a major player in global politics and commerce. Songhai's trade networks would stretch across the Sahara and connect West Africa with Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. This economic strength would give African nations greater leverage in global diplomacy and trade negotiations. European colonization efforts in Africa might be delayed or take an entirely different course, as empires like Songhai exert greater control over their own resources and territories. The balance of power between Europe and Africa would be drastically different, with Africa asserting itself as an equal, if not dominant, force in global affairs. Culturally, Songhai's legacy would extend far beyond its borders. Its Islamic scholarship, blended with indigenous African traditions, would shape a unique cultural and religious identity that could influence the entire continent. Timbuktu's reputation as a center of learning would rival that of European cities like Paris or Oxford, with scholars and philosophers from all corners of the world traveling to study in its famed universities. This intellectual exchange would result in a more balanced global knowledge system where African ideas and innovations hold as much weight as their European or Asian counterparts. In this alternate history, Africa stands at the heart of global trade, cultural exchange, and intellectual progress. The Songhai Empire's resilience would redefine the course of history, shaping a world where Africa is a central force in global politics, science, and economics. Songhai's enduring influence would lead to a more interconnected, balanced world where African contributions to global development are acknowledged and celebrated. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey through alternate history. Imagining a world where the Roman Empire still thrives, the Maya civilization expands, and Carthage dominates trade, gives us a whole new perspective on how these ancient powers could have shaped modern society. From technological innovations to unique cultural legacies, the survival of these civilizations would have completely transformed the course of history as we know it. And as promised, that fun fact, Roman concrete, an engineering marvel, was so advanced that some of their buildings are still standing strong today. Modern scientists are studying this ancient formula, and who knows, in a world where Rome never fell, we might be living in cities made to last for millennia. If you found this exploration thought-provoking, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Armchair Archaeology for more deep dives into history's what-ifs. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What alternate histories would you like us to explore next? Until our next discovery, keep exploring the past to better understand the present.